All right. We are almost ready to begin our conversation this evening. All right. All right. Okay, so we have a new face with us this evening.
Good evening.
All right, let's do a little test. All right. Hang on. All right, let me hear your voice.
Hi, Kelly. Good evening.
Hmm. Very loud. You're a bit low.
Really, really
Is there
low?
a way you can adjust your?
I can find an external mic if you would. Do you
Go
think that'll
again?
be better? Testing, testing. No,
Very low. Almost not hearing you.
hmm. Nothing at all. Hold
Mm,
on.
see, I'm good on my end.
Can you hear me now?
A bit.
A bit. Hold on for one moment. I will do an external mic. Would that be better for you?
All right. So while our guest sorts out, her, give me a thumbs up when you're ready. All right. So guys, thank you so much for joining us again for another crucial conversation. We apologize. We've been absent in the last month. Sometimes things come up unexpectedly. And if you notice, I am in studio by myself today. So I hope that um, you guys hop on to the live and keep me company as we have this conversation. Right? What you're listening to in the background is Kingdom First, 21 MP, and Tiny Angel, in case you're wondering. All right. All right. So, what are we talking about this evening, guys? Huh? All right. So, we're just waiting just to sort out a little technical stuff, make sure that our guest is comfortable. Um, but today we're talking about getting the most out of the conversation. All right. All right. Let's see. Let's give it a test.
All right,
Let
we're
me hear your voice.
testing, testing our mic, testing our mic. No, still too low.
It's a bit. Hang on one sec. All right. Talk. Let me hear.
Talking, testing the mic.
Very low. Um, those of you who are listening in, can you let me know if you are hearing us? Okay. Um,
Testing, testing.
Okay, all right. So they're hearing. Okay, they're
Okay,
hearing. I'm just
good.
not hearing you very well.
Oh,
Um, yeah, but okay, but our listeners are hearing. All
good,
right.
good.
Okay. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another crucial conversation with the Wilkinsons. As you know, this is a program focused on living godly, effective lives, and I am Kelly, as you may know, right? And you may have noticed Donnery isn't with us today, my co host and husband. But we do have an interesting conversation lined up tonight, as I'm joined by a close friend of mine and brilliant communicator.
Oh, the accolades are huge.
And we're going to
Okay.
be diving into, okay, 1 second. I'm being told to play a song. Okay, all right. I'm getting some technical assistance, should be coming shortly. Um, all right. So let's take a pause. Let's run a song, and we'll pop back in once we're properly set up. Okay, guys? All right.
fi play me. It won't work, you try fi free me. My Jesus, cover me daily. So no evil can't touch me. When I'm walking on the road, in my house when me close the door. Anywhere me there, all when me there on tour. So me nah go worry, me nah friend. Jesus fight my back, my Jesus never feel me yet. Jesus fight my back, I put my trust in no one. Jesus fight my back, God put this all around me. Jesus fight my back, Lord me not let you go. Even when the hands are weak, Lord me not let you go. The evil of the eyes on me, me have to protect way in me. At purpose of people feeling on me, me have to dip in the worst work it in me. Me nah make sin in me, so me nah go worry, me nah friend. Jesus fight my back, my Jesus never fail me yet. Jesus fight my back, I put my trust in no one. Jesus fight my back, God put his wall around me. Jesus fight my back, so me nah go.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right, guys. We are back, and I think we should be good to go. All right. Let me hear you, Shala.
Hi, how are you doing,
Okay.
Kelly? All
That
right.
works. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So technical difficulties resolved. Okay. So, all right. So let me do my introduction again. All right. Those of you who are joining us again, I thank you so much for your patience. Uh, Good evening. I see Dawn is on the live. All right, all right. Yo yo. Big up yourself, Sister Sylvina. All right, good. So good evening, my people. All right, and welcome to another crucial conversation. And as I was saying, tonight I'm being joined by a close friend of mine and brilliant communicator. I'm going to say it again. And we're going to dive into a skill that's so essential, yet so overlooked. And so overlooked, in fact, and so essential that it should actually come with its own user manual. Um, but we don't got it, right? And that is how to communicate better, how to have conversations that are meaningful and help us achieve the goal that we set out to have them in the first place for, right? Yeah. And let's be honest, we've all been there, stuck in a conversation, where we've been stumbling over our words and, not quite getting to the point. And, you get, that sinking feeling that you get when you realize you're totally failing at the conversation when you notice, the brows are furrowing and the frowns are deepening, or worse, the blank stare that tells you, you've been talking to yourself for the past 5 minutes. We do not like to be there, but unfortunately, it happens more often than we would like to admit. And so I'm happy to have company tonight because, believe it or not, my preferred mode of communicating is the written word. So I don't think I would be the best person to be here by myself tonight, right? And the reality is that so much conflict, so much offenses could be avoided if we just know how to communicate better. And so it's an important conversation for us to have. So with us tonight, again, is someone who is such a skilled communicator. That not only does she possess a rich and rhythmic voice, but she is also trained in the areas of international relations. She's the chief of staff at Vibe Connections, podcaster. You can check out She Speaks a Lot, fellow Kingdom woman, and my friend, which maybe doesn't have anything to do with her qualifications for this conversation, but I just wanted to know that I know somebody cool. All right. So, welcome.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Firstly, the accolades. Wow, wow. Sometimes I think, wait, did I really do all of that? And
Yeah.
the part about being your friend, absolutely a pleasure. It is always a pleasure to be a friend to good people such as yourself. It is
All
really,
right.
really an honor.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. So, Charlotte, I know I gave you a bit of an introduction, but
Mm-hmm.
is there anything you'd like to share with us today about yourself that um,
Mm.
you think would be helpful for getting to know you a bit, little better?
I think so. For the past, I think for the past, let's say about 5 to 8 years, I've had the opportunity to define myself in two distinct categories.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that just to simplify the conversation whenever I approach a new individual in professional, personal, whatever aspect of life.
Mm-hmm.
The first category would be that of an administrator. I
Okay.
firmly believe that I was placed on this earth
Mm-hmm.
to set order to organizations. I know that. Once I step in, I can fix your systems, I can organize your people, I can manage the personalities, I can do all of that. That's well within my wheelhouse and I love it. It's absolutely beautiful, sometimes stressful, but beautiful most of the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the second part would be an actress.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say actress, I don't mean that I put on a persona that isn't mine. I think the actress portion of it would be my ability to engage with people wherever they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that connecting with people in this day and age is it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard. People have a lot of blocks up. They are they are a little bit hesitant to share and to be a part of somebody else's world. But I really believe that I have the a little bit of a knack to get into your space and understand your mind and what makes you tick.
Mm.
So that's a bit of a summary of who I am and what I tend to contribute to this world.
Yeah.
Hope that answers your question.
No, very well, very well. And I love how you tie the things that you're passionate about and good at into purpose. And I
Hmm.
think that's a huge aspect of,
Yes, indeed.
for us as kingdom citizens, recognizing that the strengths and skills that we possess is why we're here, what we
Hmm.
were designed for, and
That's exactly
it's
it.
a contribution to the space in which we're placed. Yeah. So,
Hmm.
um, what makes a good communicator? I think we can
Ah,
start
so we're
we can
starting with the hard
there.
questions. Okay, good.
It's a hard one. Okay. Like, what are some basic communication skills a person should master? And
Ah,
and before you start, I
mm-hmm.
think I want to take us down memory lane a little bit, right?
Okay.
To
Mm-hmm.
uh the beginning of our friendship, right? So
Mm.
to our listeners, this young lady, we became friends uh while at University of the West Indies, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in our undergrad stage. And the first thing you recognize about her is her facial expressions.
Aye.
Okay. And the
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing is that we were staying on the same dorm, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Different rooms, whatever, different areas, all of that. But every time I had this particular psychology class, and I would realize myself and this other girl were leaving the dorm around the same time, and then
Mm-hmm.
coming out of the auditorium around the same time and heading back in the same direction, but a bit a different,
Different.
different
Different.
path, but
Mm-hmm.
same direction. And it, I thought I was like, wait, but she doing psychology, and she's on dorm with me, and she probably get to know this person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was the way that you would have carried yourself initially without saying a word. And I think when we're talking about communication, there, are different uh, aspects of it. It's not just the words that we use.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in preparing for this, and I took my time to introduce this because I said, hey, if we're going to talk about communication, I better come well, right? But in preparing for this, um, I watched a thing and this guy was talking about, the first thing you see in a person is their visual presentation, right? The way they look, the way they dress, and all of that, and you make your assumptions based on that. But it's when that person opens their mouth, right? It either confirms or uh, denies the assumption that you would have made. And so that's why I'm curious to know from your perspective, right? What makes a good communicator? What
For me, and in my limited experience, a good communicator is not someone that uses fancy words and big jargon. A
mm,
good communicator is someone that can assess the room that they're in
right.
and adjust the way they deliver information. That's a good communicator. And
Mhm,
not only that, they go a step further. They ensure that the people that are receiving the information, those individuals understand clearly. I have this phrase that I use while I'm training.
mhm,
Whenever I'm training groups or whatever, I always say, in my class, there are a couple of rules. And one of the rules are when I ask you if it's clear, you need to tell me if it's clear as day or if it's clear as mud. If it's clear as day, you understand everything that I've just said and you can write an exam and get an A.
mhm,
But if it's clear as mud, guess what? You're going to fail the exam. You do not understand anything I gave to you, and you are worse off for it. So, an
mm,
effective communicator assesses their room, knows how to knows how to give information, and then goes a step further to ensure that everyone is clear on that information.
hmm.
Is that
Okay.
hard? Is that too much?
No, I think that's pretty uh simple, right?
hmm
But tell me a little bit about how do you go about assessing the room?
Right. So I have this activity that I do with groups and sometimes smaller groups, one on one.
Mhm,
I try to feel out my audience. I don't know, it's not as effective in groups larger than 25, but one on one, it works effectively.
mhm,
I try to find common ground, and the way in which you describe that common ground, it allows me the opportunity to recognize, okay, this person is on, let's say, level three, and my conversation with you going forward needs to be on level three. Level three may be um, simple standard English, not too many um, similes and onomatopoeias. I can't put those things in. I just need to talk to you straight, get to the point, and deliver the information in a manner that is pleasing to your ears.
mm,
And I take that very seriously because the moment I realize that I make a statement or I refer to something and you do not catch it
mm,
or you miss it, I attempt it again just to test it out. And
right.
if you miss it again, then I know I need to scale back. Or if you catch it, I can go forward and deepen the conversation, so to speak. So that's how I assess. I find common ground, and the way how you deliver your thoughts on that common ground, that
Yeah.
determines the way in which my conversation will follow.
Mm,
So that's how I do that. I mean, it doesn't work. It's not an exact science, but in general circumstances, it works.
okay. Okay.
hmm
So what I'm hearing when you say that is you're paying attention to things like people's nonverbal cues. You're paying attention to, well, you're engaging in actively listening to their
hmm
responses.
That's
So
correct.
I guess you'll be able to tell whether what you're saying is coming across based on the nonverbal cues that they
hmm
they give
That
off.
they give. That's
All right.
correct.
Okay. So,
Even micro expressions to some extent.
mm-hmm.
Those are the expressions that I judge the most simply because we don't know that we're doing them. I know, I know. It's involuntary. So because those
Yeah.
expressions are um, they're indifferent to you because you don't know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and because I'm usually quick on those, I know
Mm-hmm.
when to stop or to pull back or go further. I know. So once I see those, I'm like, oh, okay, I know what to do next. So that's how I work with that. I know it's a whole thing, but because I've grown used to it,
Yeah.
and I know now how to navigate around it. Obviously, I'm not an expert as yet,
Mm-hmm.
but now that I can navigate around it, I use that in my daily life to ensure that I don't step on toes, I don't offend, but I can still carry a conversation and deliver information in a way that can help you. Because at the end of the day, we want to uplift as many people as
Mm.
possible, right?
Yeah.
So that's what
Yeah.
I aim to do.
Okay, I got you. So good communicating is not just saying stuff and saying your stuff. It's also listening, hearing the feedback, even if it isn't spoken, and ensuring that your point carries. Yeah.
That's correct.
Right. So you've had some practice, and I'm just wondering for persons who are listening who might be thinking, man, I'm one of those people who always has my foot in my mouth. I'm one of those people who I struggle sometimes to, notice these micro expressions. And sometimes by the time I realize that uh, I'm, I'm, I'm boring somebody, it's too late. What can you say to somebody who might just what do I start with to
Ah,
improve my.
to improve. Now, this is twofold.
Mhm.
So, on the one end, you want to improve your delivery and the way in which you convey information.
Right.
On the other hand, that is almost kind of complicated and it takes years of practice, would
Mhm.
be reading body language and facial cues.
Okay.
That took me a long time. It
Oh
took
boy.
I'm just gonna let you know I'm being very, very honest here. It took me a long time. I
Mhm.
remember during UE was my practice run, so to
Yeah.
speak. And during UE I started to learn facial expressions because technically these things are universal. Everybody does it,
Yeah.
but to varying degrees.
Mhm.
Um, so that takes a bit of practice. I I would suggest start closely monitoring the people directly in your sphere.
Mm.
When they're
Okay.
genuinely happy, you look at their face. Look at around their eyes and
Mm.
around their mouths. That is your biggest indicator if somebody is truly happy. For instance, if someone tells us to pose for a group photo, and we all pose for a group photo, and the photo comes out nice. If I, being the person that I am, I will zoom in on that group photo and I would
Mhm.
look at everybody's eyes. And if I do not see wrinkles by your eyes, I know you're not happy. And I know you're faking it. And I know you don't want to be here.
Oh, you don't cause no trouble here tonight.
Oh gosh, oh no, please don't go and test your photos. Oh my word. Um, but that is
Mm.
that is the sum total of it. But that takes
Yeah.
practice. That
Got you.
takes years of looking at people. In other words, people watching. And I'm
Mm.
not saying it to do it to just go in random places and just sit down and stare at people. That would be weird. Don't do that. Okay? But observing people would help you on that aspect of it. And it will take some time unless you read some self help book. But self help books only go a certain way, right? It can
Basically,
only take you so
you're gonna
far.
have to practice it.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to practice. And on
Mhm.
the other end, my ability to deliver information is firmly grounded
Mhm.
in reading. Not
Oh,
just reading, but
okay,
reading
hold on.
aloud.
Hold on. Stick up in with the reading before we go to the reading. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go to the reading, I want to
Uh,
go back a little bit to that first thing because I know reading is
mhm.
a next level thing.
Uh-huh.
Observing, being
Right.
an observer, right? Noticing things in your environment. You said start simple, start looking at the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy that you said that because as a mental health clinician, right? This is something that I believe is part of the problem sometimes when it comes to relationships. whether it's romantic relationships, friendships, family relationships, people are just not very present in their life, and they're not attentive to the people in their space.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me, right, that this is a foundational skill,
Yes, it is.
right, to be able to have effective conversations.
Yes, yes. I am of the view that it has helped me and probably saved me many a time. I am
Hmm.
not even joking.
Ah,
Just by looking at somebody's foot
yeah.
during a conversation and recognizing that it's not pointing to you but to the door can
Hmm.
save you. That's a simple cue. End this conversation, wish them the best, and move on. It's a simple cue.
Or it could be an indication to maybe pull them back, pull them
Pull
in,
them
or
back.
maybe acknowledge that they're not
Mm-hmm.
present, or acknowledge that they want to
Mm-hmm.
be somewhere else. Especially
Mm-hmm.
you're checking somebody, you're checking.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Mm-hmm.
checking somebody and they constantly turn in somebody else's direction, I mean, you might want to check on that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm thinking for persons who might be, trying to have a conversation with their dad or their mom or a
Mm-hmm.
sibling or a partner, and you notice some
Mm.
of these body language, these cues. You may not be able to run away from them. There's
Mm-hmm.
people, right? But it may be an indication that maybe the person is just not ready to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Think so?
And when you see that, especially in these close quarter relationships, as in people that live under your same roof,
Right.
you cannot run. You have four walls, and guess what? They're at wall left and you're at wall right.
Hmm.
There's no running away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that there are personality types that want to handle the situation now. That's not
Right.
always the case. There are people that needed to map out their thoughts
Hmm.
because at the moment where you may see that foot pointing towards another direction and not fully engaged in the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's because all of their thoughts are so mumbled in their mind.
Yeah.
Having a conversation with you at this time further compounds
Mm-hmm.
upon that uncertainty, that misgiving, whatever it is going on in their mind. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I cannot handle this now, and their body is the first thing that would indicate that they need to escape.
Ah, yeah. Good stuff. That's some good
That's
stuff.
that's that's the first
Mhm.
indication, right?
Mhm.
I mean, at that point, once their body's trying to escape, their micro expressions are way off the charts, and if you can't read them, you won't pick it up quick enough to save the interaction. But once they're at that point,
Mm.
I just want whoever it is, if you're listening, assure them that you recognize that this may not be the best time to talk about this,
Hmm.
and then ensure that they understand that you care about them. They mightn't hear it fully at that time, but say it. It's important.
Yeah.
Let them know that you care about them and say, hey, what? Let's do, you do this, I do that, let's come back at a later time.
Mm.
Because these four walls are not going anywhere, and at the end of the day, you all are living there together.
Wow.
So at some point, it needs to be resolved, but not at that very moment.
Mm.
So I think I know we try to say we should be happy and everybody should. No, let me let you in on a secret. God gave us emotions.
All right. All
I
right.
know y'all don't like that, but He did.
The truth.
He did. So while I have an overwhelming joy, sometimes I feel sadness,
Yeah.
right? So it's the same thing with the people in your sphere.
Yeah.
They feel other emotions, and in that they may not be able to communicate it effectively. So you need to give them a break so that they can clear their thoughts, that they can understand what's going on in their mind, and then you can revisit it.
Mm.
And I think that is huge, especially for the people that shut down in conversations.
Right.
Have you ever had a conversation where somebody just completely shuts down?
Yeah.
And
It's like you're talking
they
to a big stone.
exactly, exactly. They give you no information. They
Mm.
give you stiff, rigid body language. it's almost like they're ashamed, not even ashamed. They're more like they're mad at you for some reason, and in some cases they're not even mad at you. Sometimes they're mad at themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
they can't get what they want verbally to leave their mouths. Like
Yeah.
their thoughts are not forming fast enough to address the situation. So now they're stuck in this in this in this in this fog of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do to get out of this?
Mm.
That's what it is. And at that time, with my sunshiny self, I can't go blasting light into their fog. My word. No, right?
Mhm.
You can't do that. Maybe a small torchlight would help them out of the fog until they're ready for the sunshiny conversation.
Wow. Wow.
I
Wow. The book of Proverbs talks about those who are hasty with
know.
their
Mm-hmm.
words. You know how it can be ineffective. You know.
That is correct.
Sometimes it's just we have to be being observant and being attentive. It requires us to put down our egos a bit. It requires us to not be selfish because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you walk into a room and you have your stuff, you know, that you want to present. You might as well do a PowerPoint because it's just a presentation. You have your stuff that you want to present and
Mm-hmm.
you don't even pay attention to whether the person is ready to receive it. Huh.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So you see, you don't have to go and study the thing and have
Mm-hmm.
how much years experience under your belt to begin
Nope.
improving the way you can communicate to the people around you right now.
That's correct.
If you're in a room listening to this and there's somebody else in the room right now, just take a look and see what you can notice. It might
Mm-hmm.
be that you're playing the TV too loud and they're annoyed. It might
Mm.
be that they're thinking, wow, this is an interesting conversation. Turn it up, man. Right? But just take a moment and see if you can practice it in your space right now. If you're driving, don't try it. Don't try it.
No,
Please
no,
don't try
no,
it.
don't do that. Mm-mm.
Right? But first step, learn to notice. Learn
Mm-hmm.
to listen. Yeah. More than you speak. Hmm. Good stuff. All right.
I,
So you feel like we exhausted that part, or anybody in the comments have any questions?
mm-hmm.
If you have any questions, please feel free to send your questions into the chat, and we can tackle it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we can try to tackle it. However, Charlotte would try to tackle it. So you were talking about reading. Let's go there. Let's go there.
Ah, every time I tell people that the reason why I speak like this
Mm-hmm.
is in part because my parents told me to speak like this. Right? They trained me like this from young. But second to that, and the only reason why I've survived for as long as I have in Trinidad and Tobago, because we have our own vernacular, we have our own way of speaking.
Yeah, man.
I know you can probably hear my accent so clearly. We have our own way of speaking here,
Mm-hmm.
but I've maintained a even keel with my delivery because I read. And
Mm-hmm.
I listen to others when they read, and I read out loud. That's why. And after I started doing that, I started practicing my tone.
Okay.
So communication has a lot to do with your delivery and your tone.
Mm.
So I can say, oh my gosh, I want cake. And you think, oh my gosh, Rochelle is excited. She loves cake. But I can also say, oh my gosh, I want cake.
Mm.
That doesn't give you the same feeling. That's not warm and fuzzy. That's almost like Rochelle telling you a lie. So intonation and delivery play, they're hand in hand. They walk hand in hand with how you communicate. So back to my reading. Every single day, I read something and I read it out loud. It doesn't
That's
matter what it is. I see something on newspaper, I read it out loud. I am
read your
driving
Bible out
along.
loud. Yeah.
Read your Bible out loud. Listen here. Whatever the passage is, read it out loud. I agree.
Mm.
Read
Mm.
it out loud. Whatever it is, that's what I do to keep my delivery sharp.
Got it.
Not necessarily communicating with people, but
Mm.
just my delivery. My tone and my delivery is sharpened when I read. And I can guarantee that if you do the same, your delivery would change as well.
Okay.
And hear me out. You might think when you're reading, oh my gosh, this is so boring. Oh my gosh, I don't think I sound good. Oh my, no, practice. And then listen to others who are good orators. And then practice some more. Because the only way you're going to do your presentation at work, or the only way you're going to lead Bible study, or the only way you're going to lead the group session is if you practice. It
Mm,
doesn't happen overnight. I wish it did, but it didn't. I practiced. There was every single day practice. There was the additional classes. There was the training. I practiced. There's no way around effective delivery by not practicing. If you don't practice, you don't have it.
mm.
But there are people that are gifted. I would add that there are
Eh,
people that are gifted, right? Right? Fine.
we'll go there later.
there are there are people that are gifted, but
Mm,
for everybody else, the average Joe,
mhm,
practice. And I would say read as widely as you can. Don't be afraid of the words. Like Google is free.
mm,
Type in the word, ask them for the pronunciation.
mm,
Google is free. And work on your delivery.
mm.
That's the simple way to do it. I mean, there are hard ways to do it. You could sign up for a class, you could go to speech therapy, you can do all those fancy things. But the simple way is just reading. And a lot of people don't read.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is a problem we're having in our time, more no more than ever.
Mhm.
Hmm. Wow. And I'm thinking too when you say reading, read
Mhm.
widely because especially
Mhm.
I would recommend to especially fiction.
Mhm.
Fiction has pace and rhythm and emotions and all of those different things. You might find one paragraph that is describing a sad scene, and then you might have another
Mhm.
one that's exciting and fast paced.
Mhm.
So yeah, I totally I could dig that. So don't just buy the storybooks and thing for your children and you have nothing for yourself. You know, pick
Exactly.
up a fictional book and read along with them and that will encourage little readers, around you
Mhm.
to become better speakers.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it's interesting that you said that because I've always been a reader
Uh huh.
and
Uh huh.
still not
Let
a
me
very
hear
good
the rest.
speaker. No, and when I say still not a very good speaker, I've improved a lot because
Mhm.
a huge part of my job is I have to speak.
Mhm.
I speak
Right.
probably 80%
Right. So
of
you
the
were
day.
reading, but not
When I go to bed, my mouth is.
practicing.
But then that's the problem. I could read in my mind like I could
Yeah.
run through a book
Mhm.
in a night. Um,
Exactly.
but reading out loud not really my thing. Although I do believe that growing up, I think some of the uh opportunities that really helped me. Sometimes you go to church, you go to youth ministries and stuff, and you have to do a core reading or a spoken word. Those kinds of activities, they kind of push you to, you know. And it's
Mhm.
interesting when you talked about reading and reading out loud, and you gave the examples, and you were talking about tone. To create the tone that you were trying to demonstrate,
Mhm.
you saw the change in your face.
Yeah. Mhm. Body language has a huge part. Huge, huge part.
Yeah, and if you just look at you talking, your face is constantly
Moving and
things.
that's how you get it across. My delivery is
Mm,
almost 40% my body language and the way in which
right.
I contort my face. It's
Hmm.
almost similar to singers. If they don't open their mouth wide enough, you're not going to get that note out. You have to use the mechanisms, the mechanics that you have. You
Mm,
have to.
mm,
And I think that's why I've come to the place where I can be effective on stage
mm,
because I use my entire being to do what I need to do. It's not just my voice. Having a good voice is neither here nor there. You have to
mm.
use everything that you have to be an effective um, communicator. It's not just, I get up, I hold a mic, I talk.
Yeah.
No, everything comes into play.
Wow. Wow. Ooh, good stuff, man. Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking about I have two obstacles to my speech. I'm gonna say it here.
Okay.
Um One, right? I learned some skills growing up because I used to do a lot of drama. I used to
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of spoken word. I used to write a lot of poetry. I haven't written poetry in a long time. But I used to do a lot of that stuff, right? And I would do it, and they would say, "Oh, it was too quick. You spoke too fast. You eating up your words, right?" But over time, I kind of got a bit better. I even did songwriting and trying to singing, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing shows you
Okay.
that you can't pronounce your words better than when you try to sing. But
That is true.
I tried all of those things, and that helped me be a better speaker. But then something I noticed as I started be working as a therapist, right? As therapists, we try our best to not be too much,
Hmm.
right? So we try our best not to show strong emotions, not to be reactive, right? To make sure that our voice is as soothing, as calm, and not as alarming at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sometimes it can, there are times when you get excited with your client, you have to show these things, but most of the time it's more like all right, so we're gonna work through this today, and let's see what you're bringing into session today, and is that kind of, and I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that my expressiveness has diminished a bit,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
especially if it's something that I'm expected, like a practice something. If I'm day to day and I'm a joking, I just make real jokes and think people don't believe me because when I step out of my house, I like
Ah.
you know, keep it professional. But
Mm-hmm.
when I know I'm being observed, right? I go into that tone. So that's one obstacle for me. Another obstacle, I have a physical
Mm-hmm.
impediment in that
Mm-hmm.
I have a bit of a lisp,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes it gets worse depending on how long I stay from talking or whatever, right? And sometimes I have to find myself saying stuff like seven sizzling sausages in a saucepan kind of thing to kind of
Ah.
get right. And I'm bringing this up because the question I want to ask is, yes, all that you're saying there to improve and so, but what about obstacles that people have?
Mm-hmm.
What might be some obstacles to communicating well, and not just the person that is uh speaking, but the person who's listening.
Mm. So there's this fun thing called noise.
Hmm.
And noise comes in many forms. You mentioned a couple of them.
Okay.
Um, your professional life requires a certain disposition. You have different physical inabilities. You think it's something that hinders you from using communication effectively.
Hmm.
Um, your unwillingness to understand what the person is giving to you,
Okay.
your mental blocks, mental fatigue. All of these things are noise that
Hmm.
hinder effective communication. And when we get to the root of it, a lot of it can be solved by clearing our minds and listening. Those are the ones that happen in your mind. However, the ones that are physical are a little bit different and require intensive exercise to
Hmm.
correct. Now, while I know it may not become perfect, like you may not be able to get rid of a lisp altogether, but you can control the way in which it comes across to your
Right.
listener.
Mm.
And I recognize that once you get in a scenario where you have to deliver, all of a sudden, everything that you think is wrong with you comes to the forefront. And I hate that.
Hmm.
I hate that for
Oh
me
yeah.
because whenever I go on stage, all of a sudden I have butterflies. And I'm like, Rashala, you've been doing this for years. Why are you getting butterflies, right? So I think part of it, and this is going to sound weird, but just owning the fact that, okay, I have this limitation.
Right.
I've
Okay.
explored this limitation. It
Mm-hmm.
is what it is at this point because I have not made any adjustments to my behavior or my practices to adjust it. Fine. This is what it is right now. So at base level, if I were to stay here for the rest of my life with this limitation, how can I make the other things
Mm.
that is involved in communication clearer
Mm.
so that my limitation is set to the back? So
Mm.
that others don't focus on the limitation, but instead focus on the information that I'm giving. So that's what
Okay.
I do. I know that that's a little hard, but that's what I try to do, right? So outside of the mechanics of a lisp, and please note that the speech therapist would be able to tell you guys that I am not qualified in that in that area, right? But
Mm-hmm.
outside of the mechanics of it and trying to overcome the stumbling that may result because of it,
Mm-hmm.
improving everything else around it helps.
Hmm.
Improving tone, improving the way in which your body positions itself when you deliver certain information, ensuring that you are confident in what you're delivering. Like,
Mm.
whatever you're saying, you believe it. Because if you say it and you don't believe it,
Huh.
nobody else is going to believe it. I, I guarantee you. For instance, if you say a statement and it ends in a full stop, but instead, when you end, your tone gives me question, I don't believe you. I
Mm.
automatically think you're lying.
Mm.
I automatically think you're lying. So it's a simple thing as improving the things around the limitation.
Right.
Because there are some things that you literally can't get rid of. You literally can't get rid of. I know of a young lady that stutters.
Mm.
Whenever she talks, she stutters. But guess what? When she sings, there's no stuttering. There's
Mm.
nothing going on. And I think it's marvelous. But here's my conundrum:
Right.
figuring out the mechanics behind singing and speaking and seeing how we can apply that to when she talks.
Right. Right. Right.
So, with any limitation, there's always a loophole that you can use to cover that limitation or at least to empower everything else around
Mhm.
it so that your communication is still effective. I don't
Wow.
know if I answered your question completely, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it makes sense, right? Because if while you're working on your
Mhm.
vocal presentation, right,
Mhm.
you put effort into say the visual presentation,
Mhm.
right? It helps you, first of all,
Mhm.
feel confident, feel better,
That's
feel,
correct.
and it helps with the initial assumptions,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And I guess too, that's why when for some communicators, um, they dress a certain way.
Yes.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
dress as an authority. Or so from the time you see them step into the room, okay, this is the presenter.
Mhm.
This is the authority on the conversation. Or and that was something I used to do when I just
Right.
started. I looked real young, right? And the
Mhm.
first thing my clients used to ask me was, "You sure you're old enough to be doing this?" Right,
Oh.
right. But
Okay.
I always tried to dress professionally all the
Mhm.
time. And that usually they might look at me like, she looks young in the face, but she looks like she knows what she's about, right?
Mhm.
So I think what you're saying there is while you're practicing, not to just cover it up with all the other stuff,
Mhm.
but it'll
Mhm.
take time to improve certain
Mhm.
things. So while you're practicing
Mhm.
the vocal skills, you gotta work on visual presentation, right?
That's correct.
So those of you who like to knock people when you find they dress up and thing, and say, why you dressing up so far, you overdressing, and leave people alone.
That's
Leave
correct.
them.
That's correct.
Right? Let everybody work through the
No, let them work through it. Let them
no,
work through
yeah.
it.
Do
I
whatever you
believe it.
need to
Yeah.
do.
Mhm.
Do whatever you need to do. I got that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm. All right. Um, the other aspect of the question though was for the persons who uh, might be listening.
Mhm.
Well, that helps them because they're listening, they're paying
Mhm.
attention. All right. We talked about the noise.
Mhm.
All right. So then everything, all those things that hinders um communication is noise,
Yeah.
right? Whether
Anything that hinders communication, it doesn't even matter. For instance, you're trying to talk to your spouse
mm-hmm,
and you're relaying pertinent information to them,
mm-hmm,
but they're watching the TV.
noise.
That's nice. Um, you cannot effectively communicate while they're trying to watch something on the television.
Mm,
It doesn't help you. It doesn't help them because at the end of the day, nobody got anywhere in that conversation. So say the person watching television didn't hear anything you said.
mm-hmm,
They are lost. And you're trying to deliver information and now you're frustrated because they're not listening.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Noise. And noise induces pain. Pain in your heart, pain in your mind, because you feel as though you're not being heard.
Right. Mm-mm.
And the more you're not heard, is the deeper you sink into, oh my gosh. And then it kind of spirals. Nobody understands me. Nobody wants to listen. That sort of
Mm-hmm,
thing. But you
mm-hmm.
haven't yet tapped into a space where you can give information and you can receive information and there's no noise.
Mm,
And sometimes it's hard to gauge on whether there's noise or not because most of the noise is in your mind. You're not ready for this conversation. You don't understand. The words
okay.
are too
Right.
big. Things like that. So the
Right.
noise can be in your mind.
Yeah.
Or, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you have pain in your body. You can't focus on what is being said.
Right.
That
Yeah.
sort of thing. All of those things are noise. And if somebody isn't actively engaged in a conversation, guess what? You've lost them. You're literally wasting time
Right.
trying to talk to them. You might as well send them a text and hopefully they read it later. So, trying to talk to somebody when they're in an environment that's prone, that has a lot of noise, it doesn't help you at all.
Whew. When you say that though,
Hmm.
it makes me feel like we're walking around in a disco because everybody has their noise with them. I'm holding up my phone, right?
Hmm.
Everybody has their noise with them. The noise is with them before they go to bed. The noise is with them
Hmm.
when they're at the table, the dinner table. The noise is even with them when they're watching TV. So imagine you're
Yeah.
trying to talk to them. The TV is on and the phone is on.
Oof.
Even in the bathroom, the noise is with them.
Hmm. I agree. I agree.
So,
How do we do it?
oh boy.
How
So
do we stay
guys,
on
we're getting some really practical things.
the phone? Hmm.
We're getting some really practical things. I think we have a question. Let's see what we got.
Hmm.
Are you saying the multitasking in communication is noise?
Let me tell you something. Multitasking is a myth. Do not attempt it. Your brain cannot handle multiple things at once. Okay?
Hmm.
Please note, it will something will take precedence and the other things will fall to the background. You
Right.
think you are doing multiple things. Case in point, y'all don't tell. Okay, if if you this is a good example, but it's a bad example at the same time.
Uh-huh.
If you're driving
Right.
and you start to think about dinner, you're no
Uh-huh.
longer driving. You're on
Mm.
autopilot, and that's
And you're thinking
dangerous.
about dinner.
And you're thinking about dinner.
Mm.
When I'm driving, we all know that we are supposed to be looking at the road and the road only.
Mm.
The moment you decide to look at the sidewalk where a man is trying to pick up a bag of fruit that fell, your body changes direction and you start to go that way.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
multitasking. You're supposed to be focusing on the road and the road alone. Instead, you're trying to drive while looking at this man. Multitasking is a myth.
Wow.
Don't do it. That is big noise. And that's
So if you're
big
doing
noise
two
that will
things,
get you in Three
So you're doing
things?
the three things. You're watching TV, you're on your phone,
Uh-huh.
and you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to your partner, your brother, whoever, whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you're really doing is you're cycling through. You watch TV,
Mm-hmm.
then you look
That's
at your
correct.
phone, then you hear something in the conversation,
Might.
then you go back
Mm-hmm.
on the phone, then you go back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
No, that's. I tell you, what do you receive in that instance?
Hmm.
That's just a whole lot of noise. That's just a whole lot of noise. Okay, I didn't see the rest of that.
I think he was just saying he knows
Oh.
it's a bit of a discussion. Um, yeah, but it's a good question. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
question.
It
Yeah.
is.
If we could go, I know we could go way deeper.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about multitasking, but in the context of what we were talking about with noise, it's a good question because
Mm-hmm. It is.
I think when we think about noise in communication, we think, oh, the
Mm-hmm.
TV is too loud, oh, the weed eater man is cutting outside, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
see like trying to do multiple things at a time while also trying to engage with the people that we care about. Uh, is a noisy space.
It is. It is.
Mm,
I mean, if you're in the kitchen washing dishes, that's primarily an easy task,
right,
right? So you can listen to a casual conversation while
right.
doing the dishes.
It's like a
I'm
mindless
yes,
task.
I'm not against that
Mm,
because generally that's a safe activity that you can do without getting hurt and still listen to someone talk.
right.
However, if somebody is trying to bear their heart out to you,
Mm-hmm.
they're finding difficulty in the situation, they don't understand what's going on, like their heart is literally heavy, you're going to have to put down those dishes,
Right.
sit with them in that moment, and hear them.
Mm, mm.
You have to. Like
Yeah.
casual conversations,
Communicate.
I'll give you that, but you
Yeah,
need
and
to sit
that
with them.
communicates to them that you care.
That's correct.
You
That's
care.
correct. Mhm.
And I think if persons listening just take just the gist of what we're talking about today, tomorrow they
Mhm.
could see an improvement in their communication, in their
Correct.
relationships.
Correct. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instead of joking your phone while the person talking, you turn it down. Right?
Yes.
Instead of just walking through the house, thinking of your next thing that you have to do, look around you and read, what the people around you are might be showing.
Mhm.
Instead of rushing in to say exactly what you want to say, uh, pay attention,
Mhm.
slow things down, right? And one of the things I notice about you when you speak is timing. No, for
Mhm.
real. No, my my issue sometimes is that sometimes my brain goes faster than my mouth, right? And so I end up eating up my words, right?
Okay. Mhm.
But what I notice you do, you there's a pace with the way that you speak, right? That even though my crazy fast brain, not necessarily crazy, but my fast brain, right? When sometimes when you're speaking, and that's something I've had to work on to become a better listener, a better communicator. Sometimes
Mhm.
when you're speaking, I'm finishing your sentence. I know where you're going with it,
Mhm.
right? But the way you speak, there's like this, there are ups and there are downs. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
da, 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 fast but clear, and
Mhm.
sometimes again it's slow and carefully pronounced. And
Mhm.
even though my speedy brain, feels like I can say something here. I should. The way that you speak, it still makes me feel like, but there's more to what you're about to say. So I think there's some level of balance here, I think,
Mhm.
right?
There
That
is.
people need to learn, because
Mhm.
there are persons who they speak too slow, and there are persons who speak too fast,
That's correct.
right? And it's not that what you're saying isn't important, but the person listening, the rate at which you're speaking is noisy. Can I see that?
Um, safe. That's safe. I
That's
declare
it.
that safe. I
Oh.
declare it safe. Simply because while I was in Bible school,
Hmm.
there was a gentleman that always spoke slowly, and I think it was slower than this. And for me,
Hmm.
I wanted to finish his sentences, and my brain is not super fast, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, it's a mile a minute. No, I wanted to finish his sentences, and I think that was just his general position. That's just how
Right.
he operated in life. Like everything
Right.
was slow. Not just his words, his body language, the
Mm-hmm.
way in which he processed information. All
Mm.
of that happened. And I noticed that I was like, no, I wouldn't be able to function in a relationship and be effective if I
Right.
have to beg you to finish a sentence, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there are people that are like that and they can work on it as well
Mm-hmm.
because your brain, I used to work in a medical facility, and it is confirmed that you can work on the elasticity of the brain. You can learn new skills at any age.
Mm-hmm.
You can change the
Neuroplasticity.
way, yeah, you can change the way you do things at any age. So
Yeah.
for him, he can do that as well, but it will take a little bit of practice because he's been like that his entire life. The same way for us. The way I can switch between both, I've practiced that. I know when to go fast, I know when to slow down.
Yeah, I see you
And when
doing
I'm I know when to slow down, right? So that's how I've gained that sort of insight.
it. Right.
And here's how I know it's working. The body language and facial expressions of the persons that are listening. That's how I
Mm.
know. Because I can do this all day. And if no one is receiving it, I need to change my approach.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
And to we're looking at not just the person who is communicating has to work on the areas where there's room for improvement. So we shouldn't ever say, "Oh well, this is how I talk, this is how I speak." So even for me, I had to learn. You got to slow things down. You can't just, just because. And most of the times when I see, I know you're going to it, right? But anyway, just because can doesn't mean you should, right? And
Hmm.
and I'm gonna insert my husband's presence here because that's something that he always says. The meekness is power under control. Not just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you know it and you could doesn't mean you should. Just wait,
Hmm.
right? So for the communicator, for the speaker, always try to work on the areas that you notice needs help. And I guess that's where being attentive to yourself comes in, and being open to come to feedback, right?
Hmm.
And then for those of us who might be listening, we need to be able to exercise some level of grace and patience and compassion,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And understanding, right? That the person is speaking the way that they're speaking because that's how they've learned.
That's exactly it. And I figure, even while I was back in Bible school, I took a moment to pause.
Mm,
And it was difficult because I said, Rashala, no, you have to give this young man the opportunity to
mhm.
contribute without you trying to overwhelm,
Yeah.
right? So by and large, we did. We did. As a class, we did. Me, I tried my utmost best, right? And it did work. It
Mm-hmm.
did work because at the end of the day, he was a part of our class, and we all good together.
Mm,
So sometimes you just need to pause and allow it to be because people are different.
yeah.
People are different. Their knowledge base on how to communicate is different from yours.
Mm-hmm.
You did not grow up in the same space. You don't have the same resources at your disposal. You do not understand where this person came from. Their background is different. So communication is going to be different. A simple thing would be how people say birthdays. Like how people say, I'm taking this amount of years, and then somebody says I'm turning this amount of years. Like it's different, but it's saying the same thing, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
So communication has all of that in it. And we
Mm.
just need to recognize that, oh my gosh, your way is not the only correct way.
Ah, there it is.
It
Kindness,
isn't.
passion.
It isn't. Like, you know,
Don't
allow
take
your
yourself
person.
too serious.
Oh, geez. I think that's the best way to live. If you can effectively laugh at yourself, you've succeeded in one portion of life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you have.
So let's add another layer to being a good communicator here
Hmm.
is being a compassionate and patient listener.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it doesn't mean, not telling people, when you build that kind of relationship with persons, it's okay to say, hey, you ever notice that you mumble your words a lot, or you ever notice that you don't pronounce certain sounds, right?
Mm.
Or you ever notice that you speak so slowly that sometimes it's hard for me to stay with you, and I really want to stay with you,
Mhm.
right? So I think we all have to be open to criticism.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, we have a joke. We have a joke. Me and Donnery.
Mhm.
Sometimes when I struggle to see some things, if I get really excited or I'm really tired or so,
Yes.
and you'd be like, say seven sizzling sausages in a saucepan, and it's like,
Oh
and I would laugh. I'd be like, okay,
God.
I understand, but we gotta be open
Yes.
to um, feedback. All right, guys. So I
Yes.
know we had a bit of a slow start, but we still want to um not keep Michelle here. I know she's a very busy lady. I don't know how much time she gave me in her calendar. Um, right. And so that this aspect of the conversation now brings me to the question of are I guess we get the gist of it from what we were saying, but our communication skills learned? Are there people who are natural? I think you mentioned that being natural.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did. Mhm. But
um,
in light, I didn't go into it, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
So
tell me about that.
I think
Mm-hmm,
this is a hard one.
mm-hmm,
Simply, I think all motor skills are learned,
right.
right? And I think communication to some degree is learned,
Mm-hmm,
right? I don't think there's anyone really that is effective at communication
mm-hmm.
between the ages of 5 to 12 without having a good foundation from their parents.
Okay, blame the
So if
parents. All right, good.
yeah, so we no, we blaming parents. We are. No, we blame parents. No, we are. Um, so
Mm-hmm,
from 5 to 12,
mm-hmm.
if that child can effectively communicate in full sentences,
Right.
they can express their thoughts, they do not throw unnecessary tantrums. I am qualifying this statement.
Mm-hmm.
Unnecessary tantrums, from 0 to 5, their parents didn't talk to them in baby speak. Their parents spoke to them in full sentences. Does
Got
that
it.
make sense? No, I
Yeah.
hope I'm not hitting anybody on this on
No,
toes. I hope
no,
I'm not
no. This is
stepping
good stuff,
on toes.
and I want to hear this because I have a baby
Right,
to speak.
right.
Um,
Uh huh.
look, okay, we have a guest enter in the room here. Just come and say hi.
Oh,
'Cause me and Rochelle are in the zone right now. Right? Just come and wave. All right.
hi.
Okay. All right. So
Uh
we're
huh.
talking about baby speak
Right.
and
Uh huh.
helping our children become better orators.
That's correct. Mhm.
Right.
We're helping them. Mhm.
So you're saying the
Mhm.
my cutie little putty, terrible, bad idea.
Terrible. Ah, bad
How
idea.
should we talk to them then?
You see, in the first year, I'll give you the opportunity to do that because parents, you're fawning over your children. You love them. They're so cute. Oh my gosh, I thank God for you. All of that good stuff. You
Right.
see, once that year is passed, that's your grace period is over. Start
Mm.
speaking to them as
And
you
that's
would
12.
others.
That's 5 to 12.
Yeah, you no no, you need to start speaking to them from after that first year. You need to
Mm-hmm.
start speaking to these children. Use full sentences. Call them by their name. Don't
Yeah.
shorten their names. Let them recognize who
Eh,
they are. I
eh,
know, I know, I know. Because growing up, I had a middle name and it was Chrissy, and everybody called me that.
that's
And
a
by the time
Caribbean thing.
I know, right? And by the time I turned what 5 or 6, then I had a realization that my name is Roshala. My full name is Roshala.
I
No,
had to realize
Chrissy
it.
was called all the time, but I recommend. You see,
Mm-hmm.
after that first year, that's your time to goo goo gaga. That's your time to do that kind of stuff that babies speak. I'm giving you that full year. But
Okay.
you see after that, start introducing some phonics. Start
Mm.
letting that child listen to these things.
Right.
That's how they're going to become an effective communicator later on. Because if they get the mechanics early on and it's set in their minds, how to pronounce words, how to form short sentences, how to recognize short words. Oh my gosh, they will be unstoppable between 5 to 12. And then when they become a teenager, once they continue building upon it, the sky's the limit. And
Wow.
I think that's effectively what my parents did with me growing up.
Right.
They had this phonics program, and I think before we entered preschool, we were living on phonics. We lived on it. Lived on phonics. I don't know why they did it, but it worked because I am here now, right?
It
It
worked.
worked. So we lived on that thing. They did not spare any time on that. They were very serious with us being good communicators and
Mhm.
having a good handle on language. And it paid off. So this is why I recommend it. After your first year of cuddling with that child, start to introduce that. And it
Mm.
doesn't need to be in a big way. All of a sudden, the child is listening to the alphabet day in and day out. No,
Mm.
but you can do it. You can do it part like small things of 15 minutes. Oh my gosh, they're learning certain letters. They're learning the pronunciation. You can make it fun. That's what I recommend. And then the children would grow up in that way. And guess what? They'll be able to read so quickly, you would be astonished.
Wow. Hmm.
You would be. I see a comment here. Uh huh.
Yeah, Gibson is saying he agrees.
Mhm.
He never gave his son any baby talk. Right? In his mind, in his thoughts, the child has to unlearn baby talk.
Ooh. Mhm.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mhm.
You're right. Yeah, I
Mhm.
believe
Yeah,
you.
I agree with him. The I don't. There's a song that was written by a Caribbean Calypsonian. He said, "We need to stop this talk like that," and I agree with him. I mean, his song was, by and large, not something that we would normally listen to, but it had some good points. And
Hmm.
the reason why our children, primarily in the Caribbean, uh, grow up being a little timid to speak.
Ah, yeah.
Do you
Oh,
recognize other regions? Their children are like, yes, my name is X, Y, and Z, and I go to X, Y, and Z school, and I love apples and bananas. And our children, hi, X, Y, and Z. No, and it's because of the difference in the importance that we weighed on early development.
hmm.
They paid attention to that in the earlies. We try to pay attention to it when they go into secondary school.
Wow.
No,
Wow.
we have it back to front. We're supposed to do it first, right?
Wow. Word.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What about a child in a bilingual family? Right?
Bilingual family.
How do you introduce the different languages? Is it the same concept?
Yes, I would go with the predominant language first. So whatever is predominant in your country, I'd go with that first,
Hmm.
and then bring. Because I listen. At the end of the day, I still wish I could speak 10 languages. I still wish it upon myself, right? I
Mm.
do. So I always say go with the predominant language first, and then everything else.
Okay.
So I say take the same approach because trust me, at that age, they can take in multiple languages. We just think because they're babies they cannot get it, but yes they can. Don't
Yeah.
limit your child by thinking, oh my gosh, I can't learn a language. How can my child learn a no, they're
Mm.
wired for that. They can learn it. So
Yeah.
I would say take the same approach, and I would go with the dominant language in your country first, and then I would go with the others. Right?
Mm. I'm glad that you said go with the dominant language and then go with the other because coming from a neurological perspective, right? Um, I've learned that when persons have multiple languages that they know, right?
Hmm.
When it affects their fluency of speech sometimes,
That's
right?
correct.
Because of the process of translation they have to go through.
Hmm.
So if Spanish is your main language, but you're in an English speaking space,
Yes.
you have to everything you say has to come from Spanish. You have to translate it and then speak it in English. And
That's
so it's
correct.
hard now to apply some of the principles that you talked about here because you're that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So persons, especially some bilingual persons, multilingual persons, they have to learn to start thinking in the language that they want to be the best speaker in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that you said the dominant language where the child is. If you want
Mm-hmm.
the child to be an effective speaker in their space,
Yep.
yeah. But the younger age is
Yes.
prime time for
Fine.
learning languages. So do introduce the other language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course.
But give the dominant language.
Give
Ah,
the dominant
okay.
language. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right. So communication skills can be learned, right?
Yes,
It's some of
definitely.
us. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, oh, here we go. A comment. Yeah. Living in a bilingual culture, St. Lucia, the second language is more caught than taught.
Oh.
Mm.
Mm. Interesting. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Repertoire.
Yeah.
Ah.
But Lucians are very interesting speakers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when we were in school, we knew a lot
Yeah.
of Lucians. And
Mm-hmm.
the way Lucians speak, it's like a combination. It's like
Yeah.
English, and then they paint a bit of
Yeah.
patois, and they paint a bit of,
Mm.
and it's beautiful to hear, you know, but it's hard to follow if you don't know the patois.
Exactly. Exactly. It's hard to follow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I can see that. I can see that happening. Simply
Mm-hmm.
because, for instance, I started watching TV in other languages simply because I wanted to pick up phrases in other languages. And
Mm,
I realize now the languages that I am familiar with, I mix it in English. Like once I'm very, very comfortable, I mix those phrases in. And I realize, oh no, wait, you don't know this language in full. You cannot be using it
that,
while you're
that.
you can't do that, right? You can't do that. Especially when if I'm comfortable in like with my friends and stuff and I'm like, nope,
Mm,
English only.
mm,
English only. Because it's a weird combination because
mm.
when you start to do that, that's when you start to lose people. Like
Yeah,
they're like, what did you say? How
they're
does that
actually more
come in?
fascinated by how you said it than what you said. Like,
Yeah,
whoa,
because I'm
that's
like,
cool, but I don't know what you said, but whoa.
exactly, exactly, right? So I try to pull it back simply because I'm not fluent in the languages.
Mm,
I
mm,
might know a couple of phrases and I might understand a couple of things, but I'm not fluent. I
mm.
want to be fluent in many languages, but
Yeah.
that's another story.
But
That's another.
As Caribbean people too, well, not Chinese that are not on that. But those of us who have a history of the patois and so
Yes.
forth, we sometimes we speak and we say certain things and we can't properly translate it, but we know what it means, and the people around us
Mhm.
that hear us know what it means. You know, and all of those things are things that we have to pay attention to when we want to be better communicators. We pay attention to your audience.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
you could go in front of a crowd and you could speak in your local parlance and throw in your little patois and so, and the people might not understand one thing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, Woo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, another comment. Let's see. It's all in the St. Lucia culture. For us, certain words are more colorful in the Creole. Makes sense.
I can get that.
Same
I
here.
can get that.
Yeah, same
Mhm.
here. We yeah, we can get that. We can dig that.
Mhm.
Sometimes the English just doesn't
It doesn't do it. It doesn't do
show
it.
it.
It
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Like English is an overcomplicated
Mm.
language, but it's not as beautiful as some of the other
Oh,
languages that we
yeah,
have,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's why I find myself using words from other languages because it just the emphasis just it just rests better with
Mm,
people.
mm, mm,
Well,
mm,
at least my little circle. But I can understand that, and while it's all good in certain circles, I would stay away from it in other what?
mm.
that's a
Trini, where
that's a
you like
good
that one?
that's a good question.
A good
I
question.
don't I
She don't
don't
know.
know. I don't know.
Atkins,
Um,
find a Lucian.
yeah, 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 because
That's our best recommendation.
yeah, Japanese, I don't know where you'll find that. Even though I think my grandmother, she had a little bit of that in her. She could have used the language.
Mm.
I should have paid a little bit more attention and tried to
Yep,
learn a little bit of.
all of us
Yeah,
should have paid attention.
yep.
Wow, wow, what a conversation tonight! What a wonderful conversation. And I see, you see, when I introduced you, you were like, "Ah,"
Yeah,
right?
because
But you are a really good communicator, excellent, excellent, and you know your stuff.
Mhm,
Yeah. So guys, you can learn it,
mhm.
right? We can only blame our parents so far.
Wow.
I agree. After 15, you can't blame your parents
After
anymore.
15, we can't blame our parents,
Yeah,
and I'm really happy that we decided to have this conversation, because just thinking about having this conversation, I feel like I started to think more about how I'm speaking.
right. Hmm.
Yeah. So,
And started to correct me more.
and starting to correct him.
That's part of it too. We all learn together. It's a
Yes.
never-ending journey of learning.
Yeah, you heard the part we talked about when we said, you know,
I was in
criticize.
class.
But yeah, like, even those of you in relationships and so, in purpose is to make each other better. Now. Don't be nagging. Don't be nagging,
Mhm.
right?
I agree.
And
I
don't
agree.
be disrespectful. Oh gosh,
No.
don't better than that. You know,
Yeah.
easy, go easy. All right, go
Hmm.
easy. Right. So this is a good conversation, guys. If you're listening, you know, try your best. Think of ways that you can always be better. You can't go wrong with with communication skills. You can't go wrong with communication skills. Yeah. For those of you who are still concerned about the part 1, so we really are not experts on the part 1. So I mean, yeah, sure, check out YouTube, and or check out persons from the islands that still speak it. But we're really not experts in terms of how you can get into that. Um, yeah. So, guys, again, thank you so much for listening tonight. Oshala, this is the point. I have to let you go. I can't keep you for much longer. All right. But is there anything you want to share, with our listeners as a parting gift? You know, and again, um, remember that Oshala, she speaks a lot. You can find her on Instagram, yeah, Spotify, uh, the place where you find all the places where podcasts can be found, right?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
right. And she has a really cool podcast. You can get to listen to her style of speaking, and so for those of you who really want to improve, um,
Hmm.
it's always said to find a model, right? And I think
Hmm.
it's always great if we can find models that are within our geographical space as a Caribbean people. Sometimes you find models and they're American and they're English, and you
Yeah.
know, so check out her podcast, listen to it, listen to some of the things we talked about the pace and the tone, and putting the emotions here, and take a look at it. So she speaks a lot. She speaks a lot. It has had to have all those S's, but she speaks a lot. Um,
Hmm.
Available on Instagram. I think she's on Facebook,
That's right.
Spotify, and all those other
Mhm.
areas. So,
That's
guys,
indeed.
again, thank you, Rashala, so much for
You're
joining us
welcome.
for episode of Crucial Conversation to the Wilkinsons. And I'm just
Yeah.
going to give you a moment to just say something to our listeners.
Hmm. As I close off this conversation, I firmly believe that communication is your gateway to effective, meaningful relationships. If you take a couple of minutes every day to improve upon your delivery, your tone, your body language, and your intent behind your words, I know that your relationships can become more fruitful, they can become long lasting, and once you keep God at the forefront of everything that you do, building a life on this earth with other like minded people, and even those outside of your sphere, would be successful and beautiful. I wish you all the best in communicating, and I trust that you would believe in yourself and the God given abilities that you have to impact this world for Him.
All right, all right. Again, Charlotte, thank you so much. Hopefully, this is not the first and the last we see of you. Um,
Mm.
but it was a great conversation, and I pray that you have a blessed night and see you whenever. Talk to you soon. All
Yes,
right.
indeed. I'll talk to you
All
soon.
right.
Thank you for having
Bye.
me.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
All right, all right, all right. So, another episode of Crucial Conversation. So, Donner is here. You want to say hey?
Hello, everyone, and thanks for all the persons who would have joined in. Sorry I could not have been here from the beginning. I had a class that I attended, but I try my best to reach to get the last piece of this conversation on communication. Um, yeah, and what I got was really good. I'm gonna go and look it over. So please share the link. Yeah, we're on YouTube and so on, and crucial conversations with the Wilkinson, and let other persons enjoy what you have received as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, guys, again, thank you so much for those of you who have hung out with us tonight. And remember, Crucial Conversations with the Wilkinsons. We are live every third Friday in the month. And so, this is our second episode, and Talk to Me Nice. And we hope to see you guys again soon. All right. One moment.